You eat eggs every single morning thinking you're doing something great for your body. But what if I told you that one common food you're almost certainly pairing with those eggs is quietly canceling out every single benefit, and in some cases, actively making things worse? Today, we need to talk about 3 foods that destroy what eggs do for you, and most people have no idea. Eggs are one of the most nutritionally complete foods on this planet. That's not an exaggeration, it's biology. A single egg contains all 9 essential amino acids, meaning it delivers what scientists call a complete protein. It has choline, which your brain desperately needs to form neurotransmitters and protect your memory. It has lutein and zeaxanthin for your eye health. It has vitamin D, vitamin B12, selenium, and a fat profile that, contrary to decades of bad advice, actually supports your cardiovascular system when understood properly. The yolk alone is one of nature's most sophisticated packages of nutrition. But here's the thing about nutrition that most people never learn. It's not just about what you eat. It's about what your body can actually absorb and use. And when you combine certain foods with eggs, you don't just reduce the egg's effectiveness. You can actively create problems. You can trigger inflammation, block absorption pathways, spike your insulin, and even generate compounds that your liver has to work overtime to deal with. So let's go through this carefully and properly, because the science here is genuinely fascinating. The first food that destroys eggs' benefits is one that almost every single person pairs with eggs, especially at breakfast, and they've been doing it their whole lives without anyone questioning it. That food is processed, refined carbohydrates, and the most common offender is white toast or bread made from refined flour. Now let me explain exactly what happens inside your body when you eat eggs with refined bread, because this is where it gets really interesting. When you eat eggs on their own, your body handles them beautifully. The protein in eggs has a very slow digestion rate. It causes what's called a low glycemic response, meaning your blood sugar rises gently. Your insulin comes up modestly, does its job, and comes back down. You feel full for a long time. The fat in the yolk, particularly the phospholipids and the cholesterol, gets packaged and transported properly through your lymphatic system. And all those fat-soluble vitamins, your vitamin D, your vitamin A, your vitamin K, they get absorbed efficiently because the fat in the egg yolk itself helps carry them across your intestinal wall. That is eggs working the way they were designed to work. Now add 2 slices of white toast. What happens? The refined flour in that bread is essentially pre-digested. The processing strips away the fiber, the germ, and the bran, leaving behind almost pure starch. Your gut doesn't have to do much work at all. That starch hits your bloodstream as glucose almost instantly. Your blood sugar spikes. And your pancreas responds with a rapid, significant surge of insulin to deal with it. Here's where eggs get caught in the crossfire. That insulin spike doesn't just deal with the glucose from the bread. It also changes the entire metabolic environment that the egg's nutrients are being absorbed into. Elevated insulin promotes fat storage, including the fats from the egg yolk. Instead of those fats being used for cellular repair, for hormone production, for brain function, they're being redirected into storage pathways. The choline, which under normal circumstances would go toward building acetylcholine in your brain or protecting your liver, now has to compete with a metabolic environment that's dominated by glucose management. And there's more. Refined carbohydrates cause a rapid rise in something called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, when they're combined with protein in a high heat or digestion environment. Glycation is when sugar molecules stick to proteins and fats and damage them. Eggs are rich in protein. When you pair them with a rapidly digesting sugar source and create this glucose-heavy internal environment, you're essentially accelerating the very glycation process that ages your cells, stiffens your arteries, and clouds your thinking. Now multiply that by 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, which is exactly what millions of people are doing, toast and eggs every morning. And you start to understand why that healthy breakfast isn't delivering what people think it is. The solution here isn't complicated. If you want to eat eggs with something starchy, choose slow digesting carbohydrates. Think sweet potato, legumes, or even whole oats. These release glucose gradually, they keep insulin stable, and they actually contain fiber that helps your gut microbiome process nutrients more efficiently. But better yet, pair your eggs with non-starchy vegetables, spinach, tomatoes, mushrooms, avocado, and you'll get the full, uninterrupted benefit of everything that egg has to offer. Now, let's talk about the second food that destroys eggs' benefits, and this one genuinely surprises people because it has a health halo around it. People think they're being smart when they combine it with eggs. It shows up in smoothies, in breakfast bowls, in juices sitting right next to a plate of scrambled eggs at every brunch table in the world. That food is fruit juice, specifically commercially processed fruit juice and even freshly squeezed juice in large amounts. To understand why juice is so destructive when paired with eggs, you need to understand something about fructose. Because juice, whether it's orange juice, apple juice, or any other kind, is essentially a concentrated delivery vehicle for fructose, which is the primary sugar found in fruit. Now, fructose in small amounts, the way you'd get it from eating one whole piece of fruit with all its fiber intact, is handled reasonably well by the body. The fiber slows absorption, the volume of the fruit limits how much you can eat, and your body's fructose processing system isn't overwhelmed. But when you strip the fruit down to its juice, you remove almost all of the fiber, and what you're left with is a highly concentrated liquid dose of fructose that hits your liver very fast. And this is crucial. Fructose is not metabolized the way glucose is. Fructose bypasses the normal glucose metabolism pathway and goes almost entirely to the liver for processing. When the liver receives a large hit of fructose all at once, which is exactly what happens when you drink a glass of juice, it converts much of that fructose directly into fat through a process called de novo lipogenesis, meaning the creation of new fat from non-fat sources. Now here's where eggs come in and why this pairing is genuinely problematic. Eggs contain dietary cholesterol and a variety of fats, including saturated fat. For decades, people were told this was dangerous, but science has since shown that dietary cholesterol in eggs, for most people, does not significantly raise harmful cholesterol levels in the blood. The body actually regulates this carefully. Eggs also shift your LDL cholesterol particles from the small, dense, dangerous pattern to the large, buoyant pattern that is far less associated with arterial damage. In other words, eggs, eaten on their own, are actually supportive of healthy lipid profiles. But when you add fructose from juice into the equation, the liver is now simultaneously dealing with a flood of fructose and processing the dietary fats from the egg yolk. Studies have shown that high fructose intake drives up something called triglycerides. Those are fats that circulate in your bloodstream, and it does so quite aggressively. The combination of fructose-driven triglyceride production and the fats from the egg yolk arriving at the liver at the same time creates a situation where your liver is under significant metabolic pressure. Over time, this repeated pattern contributes to elevated triglycerides, increased risk of fatty liver disease, and an inflammatory state that completely undermines the cardiovascular benefits that eggs, in a clean metabolic environment, actually provide. There's something else happening here too, and this connects to insulin again. Even though fructose doesn't spike blood sugar the same way glucose does, large amounts of fructose impair something called insulin sensitivity at the cellular level over time. When your cells become less sensitive to insulin, they don't respond as efficiently to the signals that manage energy. And what this means for eggs is that the amino acids and nutrients in the egg protein can't be shuttled into your muscle cells and tissues with the same efficiency. The rebuilding and repair that eggs are supposed to support gets compromised. And then there's the issue of oxidation. The unsaturated fats in egg yolk, including the beneficial omega-3 fatty acids if you're eating pasture-raised eggs, are vulnerable to oxidation. Fructose, in excessive amounts, increases oxidative stress in the body. It generates what are called reactive oxygen species, which are essentially free radicals that damage cells and fats. When these reactive oxygen species encounter the fats from egg yolk in a fructose-heavy metabolic environment, you increase the likelihood that those beneficial fats get oxidized and become harmful rather than helpful. People sit down to a glass of orange juice and 2 eggs thinking this is a clean, wholesome, nutritious breakfast. And from the outside it looks like it should be. But inside the body, it's a story of 2 foods working against each other in ways that have measurable, documented consequences. The fix here is simple, and you don't have to give up fruit. Eat the whole fruit. an orange instead of orange juice, an apple instead of apple juice. The fiber changes everything about how the sugar is absorbed. Or better still, have water or unsweetened herbal tea with your eggs and save the fruit for later in the day when it's eaten alone or with a small amount of protein. Your liver will handle both far better when they're not arriving at the same time. Now we arrive at the third food, and I want you to pay very close attention here because this one is the most insidious of the three. It's not just that this food reduces what eggs can do for you. It actively creates harmful compounds when combined with eggs, and it does so through a mechanism that most people have never heard of. That food is processed meat, specifically bacon, sausage, and deli-style breakfast meats that are cured, smoked, or preserved with nitrates and nitrites. Now I know what you're thinking. Bacon and eggs. It's practically a cultural institution. It's on every diner menu, every hotel breakfast buffet, every weekend family table around the world, and that's exactly why this conversation needs to happen. Because the combination is so deeply normalized that nobody ever questions it. Let's start with what processed meats actually are from a chemistry standpoint. When meat is cured or preserved, manufacturers add sodium nitrite as a preservative and color stabilizer. Sodium nitrite itself isn't the main problem. The problem is what happens to it during cooking at high heat and during digestion. Nitrites react with amino acids, specifically with compounds called amines, to form nitrosamine. And nitrosamines are classified as probable human carcinogens by the World Health Organization. They have been linked in multiple large-scale studies to increased risk of colorectal cancer, stomach cancer, and pancreatic cancer. Now here is where eggs become directly relevant, and this is the part that most people don't know. Eggs are extraordinarily rich in protein, and protein is made of amino acids. When you cook bacon or sausage alongside eggs at high heat, in the same pan, with the same fat, at the same time, the amino acids from the egg come into direct contact with the nitrites and nitrite-related compounds from the processed meat. And this contact, especially under high heat conditions like frying, dramatically accelerates the formation of nitrosamines. The eggs themselves, because of their dense amino acid content, essentially become a substrate, a raw material, that amplifies nitrosamine production in ways that wouldn't happen if either food were eaten alone. This is not theoretical. Research has demonstrated that cooking nitrite-containing meats alongside high-protein foods under heat creates measurably higher concentrations of nitrosamine compounds than cooking the same meat without the protein source present. The egg, which on its own is one of the most healing foods available to us, is being transformed by this pairing into something that participates in generating a harmful compound. And it goes further than just nitrosamines. Processed meats are extraordinarily high in sodiums and in something called advanced glycation end products, those AGEs we talked about earlier in the context of refined carbohydrates. Processed meats, because they are pre-cooked, cured, or smoked, arrive at your plate already loaded with AGEs. And when you cook them again at high heat, you generate even more. Now pair that with eggs, especially fried eggs cooked in the same high heat environment, and you're layering AGE burden on top of AGE burden. AGEs accumulate in your tissues, they cross-link proteins, they stiffen blood vessels, they trigger chronic low-grade inflammation, and they are one of the central mechanisms through which metabolic disease and accelerated aging occur in the body. There's another dimension to this that's worth understanding. Processed meats are high in something called heme iron, the form of iron found in animal products. Heme iron from processed meat is absorbed at a very high rate compared to plant-based iron. And while iron is essential for carrying oxygen in the blood, excessive heme iron intake, particularly from processed sources, generates what are called hydroxyl radicals through a process called the Fenton reaction. These are some of the most destructive free radicals in human biochemistry. They damage DNA, they oxidize LDL cholesterol, turning it from harmless into the kind that builds up in arterial walls, and they overwhelm your body's antioxidant defenses. Eggs contain selenium, which is a critical component of glutathione peroxidase, one of your body's master antioxidants. Under normal circumstances, the selenium in eggs helps your body neutralize oxidative damage. But when you pair eggs with processed meat and flood the system with heme iron-derived hydroxyl radicals, you're creating a level of oxidative burden that overwhelms the very antioxidant capacity that the egg was providing. The egg's protective selenium is essentially spent trying to clean up the mess created by the bacon sitting next to it. And let's not overlook the sodium load. A typical serving of bacon or breakfast sausage can contain anywhere from 500 to over 100 milligrams of sodium in a single sitting. When this hits your system, it raises blood pressure, increases fluid retention, and forces your kidneys to work harder. And here's the connection to eggs. The choline in egg yolk plays an important role in maintaining healthy methylation pathways, which protect your cardiovascular system. But chronic high sodium intake drives endothelial inflammation, damage to the inner lining of your blood vessels, and at inflammatory state interferes with the very pathways that choline is supposed to protect. You're creating a fire and trying to put it out with the same hand. The solution here is not to give up on eating meat with eggs altogether. If you want a savory, protein-rich breakfast, choose unprocessed meat. A simple piece of grilled chicken, a slice of turkey that hasn't been cured or treated with nitrites, or even smoked salmon without added preservatives. These are fundamentally different from processed deli meats and bacon. They don't carry the nitrite load, they don't generate nitrosamines with the egg's amino acids, and they don't flood your system with AGGs and excess heme iron in the same way. Pair clean animal protein with eggs, cook at moderate rather than extreme heat, and you preserve everything that makes eggs one of the most valuable foods in human nutrition. So let's bring this all together. Eggs on their own are extraordinary. The science on this is clear, and it has only strengthened over time. They support your brain through choline. They protect your eyes through lutein and zeaxanthin. They build and repair every tissue in your body through their complete amino acid profile. They provide the fat-soluble vitamins your immune system and hormonal system depend on. And they do all of this without spiking your blood sugar, without stressing your liver, and without generating inflammation when they are eaten in the right context. But context is everything in nutrition. And the three foods we've talked about today, refined carbohydrates like white bread, concentrated fruit juice, and processed meats like bacon and sausage, each destroy that context in a distinct and measurable way. Refined carbs spike insulin and redirect the egg's nutrients into fat storage. Fruit juice floods the liver with fructose, raises triglycerides, and increases oxidative stress that damages the egg's beneficial fats. And processed meats combine with the egg's own amino acids to generate carcinogenic